Hey guys, Hone Houdini Ty here, helping you escape your 9 to 5. If you want to find me, you can find me at iescapedmy9to5.com. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be speaking to you at a higher level. And what I mean by that is, well, I used to dumb down my messages. I used to feel that if I didn't dumb down my messages, I would lose a lot of people, right? I would lose a lot of people because they just wouldn't get it. From the surface, it wasn't so exciting. If I didn't say something basic like, oh, buy a property and make $500 cash flow, and then if you have 10 of them, you make $5,000 cash flow, and you're rich, and you don't gotta work. Like, it's all true, right? That's all true. But that's like a lower level. That's like super just dumb, right? I want to tell people about how to finance these properties, how to raise the money, how to manage them, how to rehab them, how to cash out and pull all your money out. And if you don't appreciate the message that I give you on like the super detailed, really nerdy level, then that means you probably won't do well in this business. I have a friend on here, on Facebook, who he told me this little tidbit. He was like, yeah, if you dumb down the message and you hook people because you're dumbing it down, then you're only hooking the dumb people. And those dumb people most likely won't make it. So I was like, you know, you might be right. If I keep dumbing down this message, I'm just going to attract dumb people. Because if someone talked to me with a lot of details, numbers galore, and he was like, all right, Hone, you're going to buy the property, and then you're going to buy it for under 70% loan to value, and then you're going to go to the bank, and you're going to refi at 80% loan to value, and then you're going to cash out this amount, and then your IRR is going to be this, and then you're going to be able to return to your investors that. Like, if he went into that kind of detail, if I learned that kind of detail, or heard that kind of detail from an investor, I would be all about it. I would be like, teach me more, right? And then I would take that information and I would get freaking rich from that information. If I dumb down my information so that other people can understand it, so that they're excited, if they're not excited for like if they're not excited for the details, then hey, they're probably going to be lost in the sauce anyway, right? They're probably not going to make it. So I'm going to try not to dumb down my messages, right? I'm going to try not to dumb down my messages so that I don't attract the wrong people, right? I got this message right here. I was dumb enough to get attracted by John. Hey, man, I'm glad that I attracted you, but maybe you're not the audience that I want to attract. So what I want to do is I want to speak at a more sophisticated level, right? So that I can appeal to the right people. Like Raheem right here. He's like, let's get to the details. Fantastic. Raheem, he's going to be selling me a property. And then I love it. Okay, so let's talk about some details. Let's talk about a hypothetical property. You got a property that's going to sell for $60,000. Philadelphia, I'm just ballparking. Let's say this property sells for $60,000, okay? Now, properties in Philadelphia, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, they will rent out for anywhere between $1,100 and $1,200 easily. $1,100, $1,200 all over the city. Now, if you go into nicer parts of the city, you'll get even more. At the lowest level, you'll get $1,100, $1,200 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, especially when you use Section 8 like I do. I choose Section 8 because it's guaranteed money from the government, right? So that means if you're watching this video, you're paying me indirectly. So, thank you. So anyway, you buy this low-level property, $60,000, Section 8. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to buy the property and you're going to do some rehab. You're going to paint the walls. You're going to possibly change the floors, tweak the kitchen, maybe change the countertops and cabinets and countertops, change the bathroom, right? Make it look nice. So when you do those kind of things, typically it raises the ARV, after repair value. Now, based on whatever that ARV is, based on that, hopefully you did it right. So now you buy the property for $60,000, and let's say you put in another $30,000. You're all in for $90,000. But if you did it right, your property is going to be worth, let's say, $150,000. So what you get to do then is you get to refinance your money. The banks will typically say that they'll give you 70 to 80% loan to value. 70% of 150 is 105. 80% of 150 is 120, right? You get 105 or 120 back, and you get to pay off the $90,000 that you're all in, right? $90,000 all in. The bank is going to give it back to you. Let's pretend like you had all that money cash. So you would take that $90,000 and you buy the property and fix it up, right? You're all in for $90,000. Then you go to the bank. The bank says the property's worth $150. You refinance. They give you $105. If they give you $105 at the conservative level, that means you're walking away, right, with $15,000 in your pocket before closing costs. So that means there is no money out of your pocket, and now you own a property that's going to be cash flowing, because if your loan is 105, you can easily cover the mortgage payment with the rent that you collect. You collect the rent, right? You collect the rent, you pay off the utilities, taxes, insurance, and if you have vacancy management and maintenance, right? And then you have to pay your mortgage. With the rent that's coming in, you can easily pay off all of that stuff. So if you can pay off all of that stuff and make money, right, and you're cash flowing, that means you got a free property, completely like cash flowing, and you made $15,000. Okay? So if you look online, they call it the BRRRR strategy, right? And the way you would do this, or the way I would do it, is I would use an LLC. I would buy the property. I would leverage something like hard money or private money, right? I would borrow the money from somewhere else, and then I would go to the bank and refinance all that hard money, private money out. And I do that over and over and over. And what's neat is, if I do that, I buy a property, I end up with this free property. Well, now I have a free property. What can I go do now? I can go do it again, and again, and again, and again. And with every asset that I collect, I get a little richer. I have additional monthly income that I didn't have before. And I just keep adding that up. While you guys are watching me and seeing what I'm doing and reading my Facebook posts, you guys don't realize that I'm just slowly picking up one by one by one by one by one. All right, question is, what's your average desired cash flow per door? So that's interesting, right? Like if it's a hood property, maybe it's like 300, 400, 500. Maybe even 200. If it's a slightly nicer property, you can say 100, 200. If it's a super nice property, you might not cash flow at all, right? And there's different reasons for doing it. Now, if you don't cash flow at all, or you only cash flow a little bit, that's just one aspect of the deal. There are other aspects that make it very, very appealing. When you invest in rental real estate, there are 4 benefits to it. There's cash flow, there's appreciation, there's principal pay down, and then there's depreciation, right? 4 benefits to owning rental real estate. So let's go through them. So thank you for the question, right? So you got the cash flow. That's what everybody's looking for. Do you cash flow? So that's the money that you make every single month. If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, we have to go through a deeper dive. It doesn't mean it's a bad property. It doesn't mean it's a bad deal. It doesn't mean any of those kind of things. There's a deeper understanding that you have to know to see if it's worth it or not, okay? So that's one. Cash flow, everybody understands that. Let's talk about appreciation. Everybody understands that one as well. So if I own a property for rental and I hold it for 10 years, if it's worth $100,000 today, it might be worth $200,000 in 5 years. 10 years, whatever, right? So you guys understand that. The numbers that I'm saying aren't important because they're not real. They're just made up right now. But over time, properties will appreciate. Either the neighborhood will get better, right? So that makes the value of the house better. Or the rate of inflation will cause your money to be worth less. And because your money is worth less, you need more money to buy the same property. That one's like, you know, again, remember, I'm talking at higher levels, more detail now. I'm not talking to your basic, like, bottom bottom level person now. I am kind of tired of talking to stupid people. I need people to understand this inside and out, because it's those people who get rich. Okay? So again, properties appreciate for one of two reasons. There might be more, but I'm just going to go over the two. It's because, again, the property gets more valuable because the neighborhood's nicer, it's appreciating, or because your money is worth less. You ever talk to an old person and they're like, oh my God, you want to charge me $1.50 for a candy bar? I remember back in my day, candy bars were 25 cents. Well, they're not anymore. They're $1.50. Houses used to be 20 grand. Now they're 150. South Philly properties are now $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Back when I lived there, they were way less. But see, things will raise in price for those two reasons: appreciation and inflation. Right? So, Dimitri, no problem for being inspirational. So, appreciation. Now we talked about cash flow, we talked about appreciation. Let's talk about the other two. Principal pay down. Remember, in the scenario that I had, the property's worth $150. I got a mortgage for $105. That's 70% loan to value. I'm all in for $90,000. So I paid off the $90,000, and I have $15,000 left over that I put in my pocket. My mortgage is $105. Every single month, the tenant pays me. The tenant pays me, and I pay the mortgage. Every single month, a little bit of that mortgage payment is going towards principal. So my 105 turns to 104,900. The next month after that, it turns into 104,797. The month after that, it's turning into 104,684, right? It's going down. And then after 10 years, after 20 years, my principal payment, my principal amount for the loan is significantly less, which means I'm just getting richer. Here is the appreciation that we just talked about. Actually, is it this way? I'm trying to figure out, based on the video, how I should do it. Principal payment, appreciation, values going up this way. And then my loan amount is going this way, okay? That spread in between this one and that one, that spread is called my net worth. And every single day, every single month, that spread is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And because it's getting bigger and bigger, that means my net worth is getting greater, right? It's getting greater. And what's cool is my net worth is getting greater without me working for it, okay? I escaped my 9-to-5. People want to work their asses off for money, while I'm over here collecting assets that are appreciating, and I'm paying down the principal at the same time, right? I'm doing those two things. Net worth getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is why people are like struggling. They're like, I work so hard. I have 2 jobs. I have 3 jobs. Whatever. I just can't seem to get ahead. What is going on? Why can't I seem to get ahead? It's because you're fighting things like inflation and you're working for money. And those two things combined, it's a terrible recipe. It's a terrible recipe, right? But if only you just listened about collecting assets and all that other stuff, like then you'd be like, oh, I get it, right? Hector says collecting assets. That's what Hector does. Let me hit a light on, right? All right, so that is principal pay down. Every single month, my rent covers mortgage, pays down principal. I get richer, richer, richer. Last but not least is depreciation. The government allows me to write off stuff that I didn't even pay for. This is the one that loses everybody. No, not everybody. This is the one that loses dumb people. Because, oh, that's boring. I don't want to learn about that. That's why you're poor. And that's why you'll always be broke. Okay? because you don't listen for the details that really matter. Depreciation. Okay? Yeah. It's a big word, and because you don't understand it, your mind shuts off. Then you don't learn about it. And you don't learn about it, you get broke. You get poor. And you stay that way. So if people start dropping off because they're like, oh, he's about to talk about depreciation, I'm going to sign off. Great. I don't want to talk to you anyway. All right, so depreciation. That is where, right? That is where the government allows you to write things off that you don't even pay for. So let's pretend like I have a house that's worth $150. The government might allow me to write off, say, $2,000 a year if I'm trying to do the math, whatever, right? Doesn't really matter too much. I'm just going to give you an example. So the government, let's say you own a house, $100,000, you get to write off $3,000 a year, meaning that if your cash flow was $3,000 a year, right? Your cash flow came in $3,000 a year, and the government said, okay, you get to write off $3,000 a year. That means I made $0, okay? Made $0 on paper. I really made the cash flow that the rent made me, right? I really made that actual cash flow, okay? So the cash flow came in, and then the government said, oh, because you own this property and because of this little rule called depreciation, you get to write off this much money. So again, let's pretend like I made $3,000 coming in, and the government said, oh, you get to write off $3,000 from depreciation, which I did not actually pay. No money came out of my pocket for depreciation, right? I made $3,000. I write off $3,000. It looks like I made $0. So what's great is I don't have to pay any taxes on the $3,000 I made. Now let's bump it up. People are like, oh, what's the big deal about $3,000? Small numbers, just so that your small brain can comprehend. So let's say I have 100 properties, right? And now I'm making $300,000, right? I make $300,000 in, and because of depreciation, I get to write off $300,000. I pay no taxes. People are like, oh, whatever, I don't care about taxes. That's why you're broke. That's why you're poor. That's why you're dumb. Don't fall into that trap. Learn this stuff. Nitty gritty details. Learn them all, because that will make you rich. I talk about I escaped my 9 to 5. Yeah, I escaped my 9 to 5 because I'm smart as shit. I want you guys watching this to get smart so that you too can escape your 9 to 5. I do not advocate people just quitting their jobs. I do not advocate that. I advocate you go to my classes, learn the skills you need, and then maybe by proving your business model, by making the money, then you can escape. That's what I say. People are too shallow-minded. They think, oh, Home just wants people to quit their jobs. That's because you're stupid. Shout out to John Mock. If you guys see his comment, my secrets of saving money is shopping at Washington Brothers. Washington Brothers is on Washington Avenue in South Philly between 23rd and 24th Street, right? Big property. It's got a parking lot. They sell kitchen cabinets, countertops, tiles, quarter round, one buys, all of that stuff. Everything you need for your investment properties, go by Washington Brothers. Get your products from there. Awesome guys. So yeah, back to the real estate. Depreciation will allow you to offset your income so that you don't have to pay any taxes. If you made $300,000, right? If you made $300,000 and you didn't offset it with depreciation, you would pay $100,000 in taxes, if not more. Think about that. I'll say it again. You made $300,000, you would have to pay $100,000 or more in taxes. $100,000. Would you like to keep that $100,000? I'm sure you would. So how about you learn about depreciation and then take it a step further and learn about cost segregation, and then take it a step further beyond that and learn about bonus depreciation, right? If you learn all these things, then you get to offset your income so that you don't have to pay the taxes, so that you get to keep the money that you made. I'm going to bring up Trump. Trump used to say, oh, I don't pay taxes because I'm smart when he was running for office. I don't pay taxes because I'm smart. Why didn't Trump go to jail for that? If Wesley Snipes avoids paying taxes, where does he go? He goes to jail. Donald Trump didn't pay taxes. Why didn't he go to jail? Because it was allowed. Because Donald Trump was smart and learned about depreciation, cost segregation, and bonus depreciation. And Wesley Snipes was stupid and just did tax avoidance, tax evasion. There's a difference. Not paying taxes can happen legally or illegally. Dumbass people do it illegally. Smart people do it legally. That's the difference. But see, somebody dumb will listen to Trump and say, oh, Trump didn't pay taxes. I'm not going to pay taxes either. And then they go to jail. There's this concept of cheap is expensive and expensive is cheap, right? You hire the cheapest tax accountant or whatever. You hire the cheapest one possible and you will pay the most in taxes. You hire a very expensive tax accountant, tax attorney, tax whoever, right? And they will probably save you a ton in taxes. So they may cost $50,000, but they got to save you $300,000. So you made $250,000 more. But instead, you decided, because you're the smartest person in the world, that you were going to do it yourself, do like TurboTax or whatever, and just file it yourself, right? So you saved $50,000 from not hiring the smart person. You saved the $50,000, but now you have to pay all of these taxes because you don't know better. So cheap is expensive and expensive is cheap. Consider that. Jennifer says you get what you pay for. Absolutely. So I have a real estate education program and we have multiple levels. So people will like cheap out and like, whoa, I'm not buying that. All right, I'm not buying that because YouTube is free. Great. You get your YouTube education, right? Free education brought to you by anyone with a goddamn on cell phone with access to a video camera who can record it and upload to YouTube. Anybody gets to do that. But with my education, the instructors have been vetted and are multimillionaires in their specific field that they're teaching. So you tell me, which one's more expensive? Getting knowledge from YouTube from somebody who knows who and what their agenda is, or from my educational platform that has instructors that are vetted, that make multiple millions of dollars in their specific niche, and all they're doing is teaching you because they don't have anything else to sell you because you already bought it. YouTube will try to like give you something in hopes that you buy something, right? And they'll sell you anything. They will market however they need to market. And remember how I started this video where you get I used to market to people at a dumbed down level so that I can hook people who don't appreciate the knowledge, right? So YouTube is the same way. It just hooks anybody. Dumb, smart, whatever, right? But who knows what it's feeding you, because it can be made by anybody with a cell phone. Whereas my education, if you buy it, then you're already bought, right? You're already sold. And now all you get is content, raw content to make you rich. So yes, my education costs money. Expensive is cheap because the amount of money you get to make from the education supersedes anything you might have paid for the education. YouTube is free. YouTube is cheap. Cheap is expensive because you're going to make a lot of mistakes from the things you learn within there that are going to cost you down the line, right? So that's the thing. John, if it's not free, then it's not for me. Yeah, man, John, you're right. If it's not free, it's not for you. I get it. You love free things, but that's you got to deal with that. All right, Hector says 100! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! So there's information out there that will completely change your life if you are only open-minded enough to listen And even if you're already a real estate investor, there's levels. There's always levels to different things, right? So let's say you're a real estate investor and you buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties a year. Not bad. Not bad at all. If you're buying 5 properties a year, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's fantastic. How do you buy 10 properties a year? How do you buy 15? How do you buy 20? How do you buy a skyscraper? How do you do all these things? How do you leverage money? How do you raise it? And when you're raising the money to buy these properties, how do you do it in the most tax efficient way possible? My man Victor just got on here. He is the opportunity zone king, right? Opportunity zone king. He was teaching me all about opportunity zones and how if you buy in these if you flip a property, you have all these capital gains that you need to pay taxes on, but you don't want to pay taxes on, how you can take that money, put it into a fund, have that fund invest in an area called an opportunity zone, and then you get to offset or delay your taxes by 7 years. And then with whatever you reinvested in, if you sell it after 10 years, you don't have to pay any taxes on that. It's like amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Hector, when I start showing people my Maserati and my bank account, they'll believe in what you're saying. Yeah. See, I don't necessarily believe in buying all that fancy stuff. That's my problem, right? I don't have all the fancy stuff. I could buy it, but I mean, I'm not necessarily trying to impress people with the stuff I own. I got a nice aquarium. Maybe I'll lure people in with the aquarium. No, it won't happen. But I'm not interested in luring people in for the wrong premises. You're going to pay one way or another, up front or in the back end. My man Raheem. Victor, he says opzonenation.com. That is, dude, that name, I'm glad that domain was still available. That name, opzonenation.com. Fantastic. So John, he wants a Maserati. Great, buy your Maserati. Just make sure your assets pay for that Maserati. There's nothing wrong with Maseratis. There's nothing wrong with Ferraris and having whatever car and truck and toy, whatever you want. That's fine. Just try not to have your efforts pay for those things, because with the right strategies, you can buy enough assets to pay for all of those things. Every time my wife and I, we talk about what we're going to do, what we're going to buy, what we're going to spend our money on, I'm thinking about, okay, what assets can I buy, right? What assets can I buy to pay for those things so that I don't have to work for it, right? Hector says, I also have a 2002 Honda Odyssey. I just want to spoil myself. Hector spoils himself. He buys himself Honda Odysseys. You know, it's banging. John Mock, he says, I might be able to afford the car, but not the insurance. Hey, that's funny, right? A lot of people will only look at the price of the car and not consider all of the other things, right? And realize they actually can't afford it. The dealership doesn't care what you do after that, right? They'll give you the car. You got the credit, you got the car. Whether you can afford the insurance, the gas, the maintenance, and anything else, not their problem. You know whose problem it is? It's your problem. You know why? Because you bought it. And why did you buy it? And why did it allow you to buy it? Because you're an adult. You're an adult. And because you're an adult, you're supposed to know how to manage your finances. Here's the problem. Most people don't know how to manage their finances because they were never taught how. Right? They were never taught how. And here's the other thing. It's because a lot of people can't afford things because they don't make enough money doing whatever it is that they do. Right? They don't make enough money doing whatever they do. And because they don't make enough money doing whatever they do, it's like they're stuck. And they never learned about assets paying for their stuff. Right? Jonathan, big time investor, great friend of mine, big as hell. He's like, what are you, 8'17"? He says, I owned an E-Class until it was time to change the brakes. Oh, what was that, a $1,500 brake job right there, right? People don't realize that the stuff that they own end up owning them, right? The stuff that they own end up owning them because they got to work for so many hours to pay for that dang on thing, right? He says, yup, $1,500. Hey, man, if you like the thing, if it brings you absolute joy, buy it. I had a mentor. Get this. You guys are going to be like, what? You did what? I had a mentor. I paid this mentor $10,000. You know what I got in return for that $10,000? 10 phone calls. So if you're doing the math, that's $1,000 a phone call. The phone calls 1 hour long. 1 hour long. Okay, let me read this comment before I go on. Just a little testimony. Not even a year after signing up, I got a property dealing with home that's probably going to make me 20 times what I paid for the education. Hector, you're the man, and thank you for trusting in me and signing up for the course. And hey, I'm ready to invest in you because you've invested in me, and we keep on doing this, and we like to trash talk each other, but when it boils down to it, thank you, and I really appreciate, the friendship that has developed since you became a student within the school and you started learning. All right, I really like building with you, right? So anyway, back to the mentor. $10,000 I paid this mentor for 10 1-hour phone calls. That's $1,000 a phone call. It's like, you better be efficient as hell. So why I bring that up in terms of cars, he says that and actually in anything, not just cars, there's internal reasons and external reasons, right? Internal and external. Why people do things. If it is internal, then it's good. If it's external, then it's bad. I'm simplifying. He uses much better words because he's a coach, mentor, and that's why you hire him, because he does it better. I am the regurgitated version that is 10 times worse. So if it comes from internal, it sucks. If it comes from, internal, it's good. If it's external, it's bad. If you buy a Ferrari, that is not inherently good or bad. We have to test. Is your decision for buying that Ferrari internal or external? Meaning, did you buy it because you love Italian engineering, right? You just love every facet of the car. You are fascinated, right? You are fascinated by the engine and the horsepower and the torque and the timing valves and how the engine note sounds and all of that stuff, right? And if you and your Ferrari were just in a garage with no other people, just you and your Ferrari in your garage, and you're just like tinkering with it and working on it, revving the engine and all that, and it just brings you joy, that is internal, right? That is internal. So your internal happiness is there because you bought it for the right reasons. If you buy the Ferrari for external reasons, meaning, like Howdy says, King Howdy, I bought it for the hose. If you buy the Ferrari for external reasons to impress other people, but you don't actually care for the Ferrari, that's the wrong reasons, because externally, if you buy for the wrong reason, for external reasons, you're buying a car just to impress other people, right? It is going to be an unfulfilling prophecy where you're doing this to impress somebody. So if they don't get impressed by it, if you roll up in your Ferrari and the people around aren't clamoring, or they're like, oh, whatever, I saw his Ferrari last week, it's not that big of a deal anymore, right? And you're not getting the response that you hoped for from the people out there, the external, right? If you're not getting that response, you bought the car for the wrong reason, because that response, their negative response or that lack of response, will make you feel bad. You should have bought the Ferrari because you love Ferraris. You love Italian engineering. You love the engine. You love the V12. You love the exhaust note. You love all of those little facets about the car. That's an internal reason. If you're only doing it because of the people and how they will say, right? How they will respond to you and make you like, oh, he's so cool because he's got a Ferrari. If you're only doing it externally, eventually that's going to wear off. And then you will go into a state of depression. Do you guys ever see people who live externally? And you'll see it. You'll see it in movie stars and other famous people, professional athletes. If you don't get if what you do goes externally, what you do in life, right? You'll go into a state of depression. You'll see it. That's why all of these movie stars, they go through rehab and such, because they become addicted to alcohol and drugs and everything else, because they are not internally satisfied. they require external validation, right? They get external validation, and that's the only thing that makes them feel like enough. They only feel enough in this life because of external validation. So if you buy the Ferrari for the external validation, but you don't get the and you don't get the validation, you go into depression. But if you buy the Ferrari and you don't get external validation, but you bought it for internal reasons, like again, the V8 and the Italian engineering and the exhaust notes, if you buy it for that reason, then it doesn't matter what happens there. You're still happy as hell because you got this car that you love, right? Buying a Ferrari, in itself is not good or bad. It just depends on where you were when you bought it, right? Ruby says, I agree. All that matters is to you and only you, right? That's an internal thing. So what she said, it's an internal thing. So with all of the decisions that you make sure it's internal. Don't do it for external validation, right? This is where a lot of people get in trouble. People want to become rich for external validation. They think that when I become rich, I will buy a fancy watch and a nice car and a big house, and then I'm going to show it off to all these people. And that's why people, like, they buy Jordans. And they have the latest iPhone, but they can't pay the rent, right? They get evicted from their house. They have bad credit. They have this eviction on their report, right? So then forever and ever and ever, anywhere they want to live, they're going to have to pay more rent or leave more security or pay many more months up front. If they have this bad credit report, anytime they go for financing, they're going to have to pay higher interest rates. All for what? Because they spent all their money on things like Jordans and nice cars and fancy purses and everything else that they couldn't afford. They bought all these things that they couldn't afford to impress people who don't really care. They don't really care. They might say nice shoes one time. They're not going to say nice shoes over and over and over and over. That external validation will not last. If you like Jordans because of how they're made and how you feel in them, because they give you performance when you're on the basketball court, for whatever reason internally, that's fine. That's all fine. But if you buy the Jordans to impress that person who is not going to help you get rich or who is not going to help you pay your bills, then you've messed up. Internal versus external, right? You have to understand that there is this dynamic, right? Look, the way I dress. See this shirt here? Carmelo gave me this. This is a free shirt. I have no watches. Can I buy those things? Yes. And have I ever thought about buying nicer clothes and jewelry and all that kind of stuff? Have I ever thought about that stuff? Absolutely. There's always this like little tinge of like trying to impress people that you meet. But then, here's the thing. A lot of times you have to go through it in order to understand it, right? So I, in the past, have bought really nice things to try to impress people. Thought it would matter. I bought all those nice things, right? Bought all those nice things. And they might have said one or two times like, oh, cool watch, nice shirt, cool car, whatever. But then it didn't last. And now I'm stuck with the payments. I remember when I bought this brand new Beamer and I was paying like $800 a month. And I was like, why the hell did I buy this car? I hated the car. I hate German engineering. Their cars keep breaking. It sucked. But I bought it for external reasons because I wanted people to think that I was doing really, really well in life. I don't give a shit what you think now. Right? Ruby says, well, he's right. But internally and externally, I got to shower. Have a good day, all. Preach on. Yeah. Tisha, she said, I think we all got to go through that phase. Absolutely, right? So, humans are fantastic because humans get to learn from mistakes that other people make. I heard a wonderful quote today. Wonderful quote today. It said that learn from other people's mistakes because you don't have enough time in your life to make all of them. Eleanor Roosevelt, right? I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure exactly how she what the quote is, right? But learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't have to make them yourself. You don't got enough time to make so many mistakes. Then you get hit by a cinder block. Yeah, life hits you like a cinder block. And you learn. And those bills, man, they suck. Because you're the only one left to pay those bills. You're the only one left. So, if you got to pay bills, if you bought your Jordans, if you bought your watches, you bought your fancy clothes, and you bought it all on credit, you messed up, it's okay. It's okay. Because now you get to learn about buying assets that will pay for all of those things, so that the money you make from work or whatever you do for work, you get to keep, and your assets will pay for all of that stuff. So learn about collecting assets. I was having a conversation with another person who kept saying that he wanted to get pre-approved with a mortgage company to buy a property and blah, 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 blah. And based on his income, he could only buy properties under $100,000. And I said, dude, you got to learn how to buy properties like an investor. Because an investor, the way you get approved for money isn't the same way. We're not looking at debt to income. No DTI here, right? And he keeps going back to this DTI thing. And I think it's because he's comfortable. Even though buying the house that's under $100,000, because that's all the mortgage that he can get, will be very uncomfortable. And he's not allowing his brain to stretch to the levels that I can take it to. And I don't know why. I think it's just because he's scared and he's comfortable and he thinks that this is the only way. And he says to me, like, I got to get this foundation right. I got to get this foundation right, then I'll look at buying bigger. I'm like, look, you don't actually have a foundation. You have this thing that you call a foundation based off something you heard from this person or based on what you learned from that person. And none of these things came from an actual investor who knew how to do it right. Right? All right. Jose, I definitely went through that before I met this group. Jose, I'm very happy that you're in the group. It's like you came and you just looked at it and you said, you know what? Yeah, this is the right thing for me to be a part of. You didn't know me. You didn't know the people in the group, but you were just like, yeah, you know, these are all like-minded people, and these people are going to help me get further. And so I appreciate you for taking that risk and joining our group. But now I love the fact that you're gaining value from being a part of the group. And I hope you go really, really far in your business. I hope you learn all of this stuff. You become really financially literate and you get rich. Everybody watching this Facebook Live video, you guys get to be rich, right? Nobody is stopping you. People might blame like their boss because that's where their income is and why they're not rich. Look, your boss is never going to pay you enough money to be rich. That is your responsibility, not your boss's. Your boss's responsibility is to make sure that the company runs. Your boss's responsibility is to make sure the company runs. And in order for the company to run, it needs to make sure that the expenses are low enough so that the company is profitable enough to continue to operate. So just in that, it's their job to make sure that they pay you a rate that's high enough so that you don't quit, but low enough so that they still profit. Do you guys get that? And even if you're a high paid salary, like my friend just hopped on just now, he's got a high paid salary. We talked about real estate investing before, but he just sees it in such a weird way, so he doesn't do it. He relies on his income, and that's that, right? And now he might have a decent amount of money, but he'll never ultimately be really rich, because being really rich comes from owning assets. And until you buy these assets, you won't get really rich. You'll have a decent living. Don't get me wrong. Some people with really high salaries will have a decent living. But unless you invest in assets, you'll never have the free time that you want. And ultimately, you'll never build the wealth long term that you want. You'll pay all your bills, but that's that. You'll die and your kids are going to have to do whatever you just did all over again, right? They're going to start from zero. But if you create something with lots of assets, you get to set up your future generations, not from ground zero, but from a much higher level. Now, people with high incomes, what they do is like, oh, I'm going to invest in my child's education, and they're going to send their kids to the best school that they can afford and say, like, I'm doing my part. But if you don't leave the kids any assets, you're not really setting them up, right? Because they still have to build from ground zero. They have the education from a high level institution, but they're building from ground level. But if you have a whole bunch of assets, it kind of doesn't matter what school you send them to, right? It doesn't matter what kind of school you send them to. It's like they're just so much further ahead, right? John Linton just said ESBI. That stands for employee, small business, big business, and investor, right? There's this transition that you have to go through. Employee, small business, big business, and investor. So if you drew it as a box and you had E and S, and then you have B and I, what you want to do is you want to be on the B and I side, big business and investor. What does big business mean compared to small business? Well, think of small business as self-employed. That's the person who buys like a convenience store and they work behind the cash register and they kind of do that, right? That's almost no different than an E, except for it's worse because now you own the job. In E, as employee, you have a job. With S, you own the job. But both are still a job. But over here in the B and the I, the B's and the I's create jobs. B's create more jobs because big business relies on systems and people to generate income. And I's require money to generate income. Right? So, B's and I's, right? B's and I's is what you want to graduate to. E's and S is kind of like what you want to avoid because that is the one that it's almost like it's like a time suck without any back end pop. Let me say that again. The E and the S side is a time suck without back end pop. And why I said it the way I said it is because it can be argued that a B and the I, it requires a lot of time to build a big business as well as an investor business, right? So that might be a time suck as well with a big pop at the end because the B and the I can sell the portfolio, sell the business for millions or billions of dollars. An E and an S will never sell their job or their little corner store for big money. Your E, you will never sell your job because you can't, because it's not yours. Right? My high income salary friend that was on here, I mean, he just doesn't want to, I don't think he acknowledges that, yes, he's got a big salary, but that's temporary. As long as he has that job, he may have that salary, but who knows how long he has that job for, right? So, Jennifer says, generational wealth is important. I mean, I wouldn't disagree. I think generational wealth is very important. And I think it's important also to speed up how quickly you get to build up this wealth. Some people come to my class and then don't join the class because there's a cost to it, right? There's a cost. They'd rather it be free or whatever, right? And some people just, I guess, genuinely can't afford it. Okay, so I'm slow talking this one because I want to make sure that I say this in a way that doesn't offend people. But I want them to hear it so that they move, right? My messages on Facebook are like really harsh because I want you to feel it. I want you to really, really feel it. There's a little story. A dog was sitting on a nail. Somebody came over and said, "Hey, how come the dog doesn't get off the nail?" And it said, and then the owner said, "Oh, that's because the nail doesn't hurt enough." So the dog just lays there because it's easier to lay on the nail, right? It's easier to lay on the nail than it is to get off of the nail. So my education has a cost to it, okay? My education has a cost to it. That's the nail. There's a little nail that's poking you. And it's like, hey, just pay for this thing. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. My education is getting off the nail, right? Your situation is the nail. The reason people don't buy into my course is because it's easier for them to sit on the nail than it is to pay for my course and do something about their life. My course changes lives. It gives people the education that they need to be successful. This education is amazing. But people, here's the problem. People think they know enough. And even worse, smart people think they know enough because they're smart. They're like an IT professional. And they think they know everything already. And so they think they can just jump into the real estate arena and be great at it. That's like me jumping into the IT arena and being great at it. No, I don't know anything about IT. I am smart as hell. And when it comes to real estate, I will challenge some of the best. But put me in an IT arena, I don't know anything. So I don't know why really smart ass people in IT, in nursing, in whatever your field is, you think you can just jump into my arena and you think you know enough already. Why? Because you bought a house once? Get out of here. I own a computer. I'm not an IT professional, right? Just be logical, right? So my posts, like it stabs the knife in and it twists. My posts are like rough, and I want it to be rough because I want the nail to hurt enough so that you get off of the nail, you join my program, and you start learning what you need to learn so that you can start changing your life. Your life won't change if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So I was saying that some people don't join, and that's really, really, I want to say this, and I'm going to take away any of like the filters. I'm going to say it's stupid that you don't join. Because what I was saying earlier, when Jennifer said generational wealth is important, I said, yes, it is, but also the velocity in which you generate that wealth is important too, because you're not going to live forever. You want to generate that wealth as fast as possible because it takes time to create wealth. And if you can figure out how to speed it up, you won't waste as much time. People who don't join the course or join some other course or something, right? And they think they're going to do it for free. They're going to do it by themselves. They got some kind of uncle that's going to like show them, or they're going to look at YouTube and Bigger Pockets and whatever podcasts and stuff like that, right? My course speeds it up for you. Yes, it costs a couple of dollars, but you're trying to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. It makes no sense that people are so afraid of spending this much with the anticipation to make this much, right? But they like hold on to their money like keeping that little bit of money is going to make a difference. A friend of mine, Dan Satoski, he's a big-time real estate investor. He said, like, I don't like giving out coupon codes because me giving out a coupon code for an education course where you save $20 will not make a difference in your life. So in that same regard, just stretched out a little bit more, my cost of the course will not make a difference in your life. Sure, you're going to save a couple bucks. It won't make a big difference. You know what will make a big difference? The education that I provide. That education will change your life. It will speed you up through this process. By speeding you through this process, you will make generational wealth faster. Also, said a different way, you will make more generational wealth in the time frame that you have. You have this long to live. If it takes you this much time to make $1 million, or it takes this much time to make $1 million, how about you do this one and you can make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million versus $1 million, right? Big difference. All right, we got Sarith. Do you have someone that does what you do in California so I can get in touch with them? Dude, my education's all over the country, but the knowledge is the same. If you join my group, no matter where you are, because I have a guy in Florida. I have a guy in Florida right now who has done flips in Philadelphia, right? He did flips in Philadelphia. He's in Florida. He took the knowledge that I provided to him. He took the resources that I provided to him, and he did his deals in Philadelphia while he lived in Florida. So if you're in California, Sarith, what are you waiting for? You're from Philly. Do your deals in Philly. I provide the knowledge. And look, the knowledge is universal. It works all across the country. Your debt service coverage ratio in Philadelphia at 1.2 is the same in California. Here's what's funny. You don't know what debt service coverage ratio is. You know why? Because you didn't get the education. All right. No more ripping on people. So who else is on here? Hector. And you make friends and associates that have your back. So Hector brings up a very good point. When you join the educational community that I built, you have all of these people that care for you, watch out for you. Now, there's hundreds of people, and will they all be there to call you and stuff? No, it's the real world. You will build relationships with people you get along with, and it's up to you to put yourself out there, right? But we have this community of like-minded individuals who are all after the same thing, which is investing. It's all about investing. So if you're doing something, and like I knew Hector was interested in certain types of properties, and because of his skill set, I knew what he needed. So when a deal came my way that didn't work for me, I was like, yo, Hector, do you want this deal? So he got this deal that he would have never gotten before if it weren't for me knowing Hector, because he's in my group, and then me forwarding the deal to him. So he bought himself another asset, all because he's been in the group. He's also gotten different jobs from other people because he's a contractor as well, which made him richer. And now what's interesting is, so Sarith, I'm sorry, I don't want to rip on you anymore, but I got to bring up something. So Sarith is watching the video. I mean, he might have dropped off, right? But he's a good friend of mine. He's been a good friend of mine for years. He called me to become a real estate investor or to learn more or whatever. And I said, hey, join my real estate program. And he didn't flat out say no. He just showed me with his actions what he intended to do, which was nothing because he didn't join. But we have a common friend between us, this guy named Sean. Some of you guys know Sean Speed. Sean Speed, and not to put Sean out there, but he was in a much worse financial situation than Sarith. Sean didn't have the money or the credit or the knowledge base or anything, right? They didn't have any of that. Sarith makes great money, has great credit, all that kind of stuff. Sean said, Hone, I don't know what you got going on here, but I want in because it sounds great. And he said yes. And Sarith said no. Right? And I share this story not to rip on Sarith. I say it for two reasons. One, because I want Sarith to join. So I'm stabbing the knife in and I'm twisting. The other reason I'm saying this story is for other people to see this like amazing little contrast here. Sean, who is a friend of me and Sarith, right? Sarith said, no, I don't want to be a part of the group. Sarith has a lot of money from his job. He's bought houses. He's bought a house or something, and he's got great credit. Sean didn't necessarily have any money or credit or knowledge, but said, Hone, I'm in. Please teach me. In that time frame between, whenever we all spoke, Sean has done dozens of deals. I don't know if Sarith has done any. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you don't post. I'm going to assume that you didn't. So, 0 and more than 10. 0, more than 10. Lots of money from an income and great credit. No money, no credit. No money, bad credit. Said yes to the opportunity. Said no through his actions. I presented him the opportunity. He said no. Based on his actions, because he didn't sign up. Okay. So Sarith, I don't know. Maybe he thinks I'm bullshit. Maybe he thinks that this isn't real. Maybe he thinks that, my education isn't good enough. Or whatever, right? Maybe he knew me, and he did. Maybe Sarith looks at me like I'm not a real estate investor because he can still see me from 10 years ago when I wasn't a real estate investor. He can only see me for what I was, not what I became. Even though Sean has known me for the same amount of time, right? We're all friends. Sean has seen me from the same amount of time. He sees me as a different person. And he said yes. I don't know why Sarith said no. I don't know why Sean said yes. Either way, that decision dictated their whole entire life. Completely. Right? Now, can Sarith say yes and get into this field and do better than Sean? Absolutely. He's got the money. He's got the credit. I'm not saying you need money or credit, but if you don't have money or credit, that's something you got to figure out to get around. He doesn't have to get around it. Sarith, if he has the money, he has the credit, he can just do it. Right? And he can do other things. He can do the no money strategies like Sean, and he can do the money strategies because he's got it. Right? So it's that dynamic. He's got more options. If you have money and credit, you have more options. If you don't have money, you don't have credit, you better have grit. Grit will change your life. That's what Sean had. Sean had grit. He didn't have money or credit. He found it, though. He figured it out. He did all these no money, no credit strategies. Surith may not do those things because he might be comfortable with the money and credit that he has. And money and credit sometimes erases grit, unfortunately, right? I posted this thing, a little controversial, but I said the American dream looks alive and well in everyone but Americans. I'll say it again. The American dream looks alive and well in everyone except for Americans, meaning that the immigrants are working hard and going for it, right? And going for that American dream. And then I have a majority of my portfolio, real estate properties, all these people on welfare and Section 8 who are more than capable of doing amazing things. I think they're great people. I think they're totally great people. But I can tell that if they applied themselves, they would have so much more. But then you have these immigrants who don't know the language. They can't even speak English. They can't speak English. They have zero credit. They may not even have a social security number, right? They have all of these things stacked against them, and yet they make something of themselves. And amazing stuff, right? You see all these nail salons and Chinese food stores and all of these businesses. And then if you talk to the owners, they actually own a whole bunch of real estate and all. Like, it's crazy. And they came to this country naked, like literally sometimes, no clothes, no money, no identity, unable to speak the language, and they made it. And not that I'm trying to hate on my tenants, because it's those tenants that allow me to be like, it's my business model, right? But they get Section 8 subsidy, welfare, and everything, man. It's like, and they're never going to get off it, because if they work hard, then they're going to blow their subsidies. So they're just going to stay in the system. And the system's broke. And they're smart enough, see, they're smart enough to learn how the system works. So they're going to stay in it forever. So be it, right? Grit. So I posted that, and people said, like, it's because they didn't have a choice. The immigrants didn't have a choice other than to have grit. It's either have grit or die. Have grit or die. Americans, it's like have grit or subsidies. Versus have grit or die. They chose grit. Grit is a blessing and a curse. Or, I'm sorry, having no options really is a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because it's like, damn, this is going to be a hard life. It's a blessing because they were able to create all of these possibilities. Amazing stuff. John says, I forgot how much it is, my friend. Come to class. We'll talk. We'll talk about all the different options, because there's financing and everything. And yes, it's expensive enough to have financing. So, but it is as cheap as $400 to get started. Actually, it's as cheap as $200 to get started. So come talk to me. Millie, they're hungry. They don't mind working their butts off. They want their kids to have something when they leave. Absolutely, right? It's that grit. There's just no choice. It's either I work my ass off, I have this grit, I can't complain, and even if I complain, I'm still gonna take action. Or I die, or my kids die, or my kids are poor, or my kids are hungry. And if there's a choice, it's like my kids are gonna be hungry, or I develop grit and I work my ass off despite all of the pressure that's against me. Which one are you going to choose? All you parents out there, which one do you guys choose? Your kids starve, or you develop grit? And that's what a lot of immigrants had to deal with. That's what a lot of immigrants still have to deal with. It's amazing. So that's why some people get rich and some people don't. And it's like the people with high salaries, because they followed the plan. They went to school, they got good grades, and then they got a nice job, right? Like, a lot of them just make a lot of money and then they spend all their money. They make a lot of money and then they spend all their money. There's a lot of high income people who are paycheck to paycheck, believe it or not. A lot of high income people, paycheck to paycheck. And It's only because they're not like focused on collecting assets. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Millie says, I've always said immigrants come here and build their life within 5 to 10 years. A lot of Americans don't achieve that in their whole life. It's the system. Things are handed to them for free. Why work? That's exactly what she said. Why work when it's given to you for free? That was the other post that I had. Teach a man to fish. Teach a man to fish, and you maybe feed him for a lifetime. Give a man a fish, and he'll never do anything ever again. Like, it's like, why? Give a man a fish, and he's just going to wait for his next fish. And then he's just going to learn the rules on how to get more free fish. So, this whole thing, like this whole Facebook Live, if you're hopping on late, I would recommend you watch it from the beginning, because I go into real estate details, right? Very educational. And then people took me down this philosophical path. And these are my thoughts. These are thoughts that bounce off my head every single day. The reason I'm able to post the way I post and use the words that I use and write the message that I do is because I think about it every single day. It's like philosophy. I'm not saying like I'm a philosopher. No, I'm just some ghetto dude from South Philly who figured out that buying assets was a smart thing, right? I'm not a philosopher, but I do really appreciate like deeper knowledge and understanding of how the world works and how the mind works and all this kind of stuff, right? And then when it clicks in certain ways, like I was talking to you about like the internal and external and all that kind of stuff, like I love sharing it because it makes us all better. Tisha says, things that hone is thinking. I'm just thinking about what my next fish is going to be. To be honest, I'm real simple, you know? I wear free t-shirts. I wear no jewelry. Like, I don't got a fancy car. I don't even have a car. This ain't my car, right? This isn't my car, to be honest. I don't have a car. I don't have a house. I don't have any of these things. It's crazy. It's really crazy. I just buy, like, bicycles. I like go bike riding. I play basketball with the guys sometimes, or football. And then I buy fish for my fish tank. It's so simple what I do. And I just keep buying assets. And then I try to help other people get smarter and smarter. Corey says, throw some arowanas in with those parrotfish. My man Corey, who knew you were a fish lover, fellow fish lover? Because you don't say the word arowana if you don't know this hobby. But anyway, this video, I think it went well. I think there was a lot of content in here. I think a lot of people can gain a lot of like really good information, both technical in terms of real estate investing, but also philosophical. In a way that like it kind of shows you how to live a life worth living and also worth remembering. I think it was the Dalai Lama who said that live a great life so that when you're old, you can look back and live through it again and be proud of it. Because if you lived a pretty crappy life throughout your whole entire life, you're not going to want to look back, because you're almost going to be, like embarrassed by your life. You're not going to share it verbally. And when you think about it, it's just going to bring you heartache. So live a good life so that you can live it twice. Live a good life so that you can live it twice. Once when you're young and actually living through it, and the second time when you're old and you're reflecting back and you're telling your grandkids or whatever about it, right? So live a good life so you can live it twice. My man Jose, he said African cichlids are amazing. African cichlids are dope. The only thing that I don't like about the African cichlids is that they live in brackish water. For those who have no idea what brackish water means, it's got like a little bit of salt. It's not a saltwater tank, but it's got a little bit of salt. And the only reason I don't like that is just because I don't want to maintain that. I don't want to like measure my salt content and all that kind of stuff. It's just a little bit more work than I care to do. I like to keep it simple. My wife had a saltwater tank, and we were like measuring the ammonia and the nitrates and the nitrite and the salinity levels and the temperature and the pH and all that crazy stuff. I know you got to do that with like freshwater tanks too, but we just didn't have the salt aspect, which is one less thing that we had to do. One less job. No 9 to 5. I'm just kidding. That's blending messages now. Anyway, I'm going to end this so that people can rewatch it from the beginning. Again, I really hope that you guys get something out of this, even if it is just one little nugget. Collect one, rewatch this video, collect another, rewatch this video, and just keep on doing that. That'll change your life. That'll probably change your life. All right, y'all. With that, thank you guys for staying on for this long. I can't believe that I spoke for that long. I appreciate the little back and forth. So, with that, thank you guys. See you later. Peace. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. All right, bye, everybody.